Okay, welcome back. So with any project that I'm working on, I always do a pencil sketch just to kind of figure out what I'm going to do. So then once I get that done, then I have this sort of cardboard that I use to figure out the size and make sure that it's the size of the overall project and how things are going to lay out. Okay, so now I'm going to work on this top part here. So now this is my original pencil sketch that I did of the whole thing. I went back and remeasured it, so it's not in pencil, of course. But so these are, I think, 1/8 by 1/8 pieces of wood here, base wood. So as you can see, all I do is I just sort of lay it out, measure it from the paper, and then just cut it. I don't have any sort of saw kind of blade, so I just have to go slow. So because of that, I always go back and lay all the wood pieces back out to make sure that it's, it's going to work. They might be a little too long or one of the angles is off. Okay, so now I'm going to use some super glue gel, and I have this on the XPS foam, so that way if it, when it goes through the wood pieces or whatever, I can pull it off and pop the foam if I have to. And then I'm going to use one of these 1, 2, 3 blocks so I can kind of make sure everything is square, at least the best that I can. The first time I made this, it's a little off. The second time was definitely much better. So, a little practice really helped. I kind of jiggle it back and forth to make sure that the gel doesn't, set in on the XPS foam. And because super glue actually melts foam, it's kind of a safety protocol. If anything drips, kind of prevents everything from sticking. Okay, so once I get the 2 side pieces, then I'm left with cutting all of the connecting pieces together. The nice thing about it is all the connecting pieces are obviously the same size, so I basically cut one and make sure they're all exactly the same. I don't think on this first one that I measured everything 100% accurate because it's going to be a little off. And you can see it, right here, you can see it, it's a little off for whatever reason. It was twisted, or one's a little bit longer, whatever, it worked. But unfortunately, it's slightly off. It's not 100% square. The second one was actually really good, but not this first one. So as I say, it's slow and steady wins the race. I put all the corner brackets in there, so the support for those. And then for this support in the center of it, I glued 2 of these pieces together, let that dry, and now I'm going to glue the ends together on the thing. That's part of the original design, like from the movie. It's much thicker right here in the the support. I don't think it's necessary for this model, but why not? So this is the roof, the peaks or whatever. I do the same thing, I measure it on the paper. Excuse me. I measure it on the paper, and then I very slowly, very, very slowly put this together, because at this moment, I'm not even sure if this process is going to work. It does work, but I didn't know that at the time. So I line it up with, that's why I bring the piece that I've made up against the foam. So I have a basis to figure out to make sure that I make the legs of this thing the appropriate size. See, there you go. It measures up. This way, I know that once this glue dries, it's gonna fit. So then I put a little bit more glue to fill in the crack. Again, because this is gel, it's gonna work a little bit better. So now I use a little piece of wood there to get it out and to spread it into the crack there. Okay, so once that's completely dry, I need to cut an angle. I just freehand this. I didn't measure it specifically, or at all. So all you need to do is just cut a little bit of an angle, so that way when these 2 pieces connect together, they'll form a bond, a better bond. So, see, there's no glue on this right now, but once you get the angles right, it'll sit. Okay, so I dabbed the glue in the corners, and then I put some glue on the peak there, and then I try my best to fit these all together. It looks like I'm doing this really quickly, but this is about my third attempt. So I'm doing this. I know there's super glue on here. I have a little bit of time because it's gel. It doesn't dry as fast. But I have some of that uncure stuff sitting around nearby just in case I accidentally glue my fingers together. But, you know, use tweezers if you need to, you know, whatever. I don't really necessarily recommend using super glue in your bare hands. Okay, so once you get that first one done, then you just need to make two. See, that second one is much more square than the first one was, but you know, it's kind of hard to tell the difference. So, okay, so now I have to cut out all of the pieces to make the body of the towers. So there's the topper, and these are the little foam ramps that I created, you know, so the dice have something to bounce off of, and there's that bottom ramp. So I'm just going to freehand this. I have everything sort of drawn. Now this is the original stuff, so all my notes are actually on the model because I'm actually making the computer layout, the digital layout of it at the same time. But so I'm just kind of freehanding it because I know that these little pieces are going to go in here and sort of square everything up. So I'm not really quite sure why I'm talking about that for so long. It's just little pieces to square. So I'm gluing that down on top there, that long piece, and that's I shouldn't be doing that, and I'm going to figure it out here in just a second. But so now when I get those pieces in there, it's like, oops, I'll put it on top, right? Because we're not going to do that until last. We have a few more steps. So I'm going to put I'm only going to glue what I need to glue to get them to stick, leaving that top portion open. So now if you notice, most of my ramps are not 100% in the center of the thing. You can kind of make them however you want, but inevitably no dice is going to fall and not hit at least one or two of those ramps. So it's not really a big deal. And at the bottom, you have the bottom ramp no matter what. It's going to roll down the hill. So it's still going to, you know, move the dice around no matter what. So here's I've already sort of pre-cut some angles. You can do it after or before or whatever. I didn't put them in the drawings because it's just going to be kind of eyeballing it depending on where you put it. But yeah, once I get that up there, then I sit it down to figure out the topper where it's, well, actually the cover there, and then I glue only where the actual lid is going to go, and then put that on there. That's pretty easy though for the most part. Okay, so as I say, this is the most hot glue I think I've ever used. I think I used like 4 sticks of glue, maybe 5 for the whole project. But so there's that, it's on there. And I was really happy to find that it matched. I was a little worried. Sometimes it's always a little off. Okay, so now yet again, I want to make sure that everything I cut is relatively going to fit together. Because now that I have both of them. So, you know, I'm pretty comfortable. So now I have to glue all of the foam together. I have the large stick glue because the smaller ones are just a pain in the butt. They don't really do very well, not on larger construction like this. So then I get all the pieces together and I have them all marked so I can kind of make sure the center lines are going to be straight. So then I use my big old knife and slowly cut. You go fast on this one, you have a really good chance of cutting your finger off, so go very slow. The knife weighs probably about a pound by itself, so now once I get it cut, I realize that I don't want to use a ton of sculpting mold, so I put this little band in there so that way I can fill in some of the gap. So again, this is sculpting mold. I only had a little bit left, but luckily I had enough. So essentially, you know, I always use like a glove because I'm only going to use my one hand to smooth it all out. And the sculpting mold doesn't really stick to it. It's a neoprene, or not neoprene, but butyl, something. I forget what it is, but it doesn't really stick to it. So slowly I go back over, and as I'm doing them all, I let it dry little by little, and then I go back and try to smooth it out a little bit at a time as it dries, so this way it's not so bumpy. But technically you can leave it bumpy because the bumps will just help the dice randomly roll, so it makes it all better. So this is nutmeg that I put right in front of the camera. I'll figure it out here in just a second. There we go. I just use the one. I don't do anything with it. I don't add any water, and I just kind of put it on there very quickly, one coat, because this paint is already kind of thin. It doesn't cover very well, so when it does one coat, it kind of looks like a stain. I don't need to paint the whole tower, because it's going to be covered up. So just wherever the covers might actually open up is where I paint. So I paint this. I got these prints on from Kinko's, or FedEx, and they're on yellow cardstock. Makes it a little bit harder to fold, but it makes it much easier. And so anyway, I cut that all, and I don't have a scoring tool, so I have to use a straight edge to make sure I get everything 100%. And this stuff actually is very hard to score because it's pretty thick. But incidentally, I think each tower cost me like $10. The price on printing color laser is ridiculous, but I do it because home printer ink is usually more expensive, and it's still water soluble. So this stuff is laser, so even if water gets on it, it should be, the paper will ruin before the print does. So I leave this one part to last, just in case it's too tight or something like that, just as a, and it might be a little hard to put the stupid thing on once it's all put together. But if you notice, everything is not going to line up 100%. It just is what it is. But I use this for last because, and you got to notice that not all of the prints seem to line up. And though I tried my best, it was important to make sure that I had some leeway once I started to put the thing together, which is why things don't match up 100%, so I can have overlap. Sorry, just hit my microphone. Okay, see, so I needed to have a little bit of overlap, and there's only supposed to be a little bit of that red showing, based on the movie, anyway. So once I get all that together, it seems pretty good for the most part, but and there's still a little bit of room down at the bottom, so I'm going to have to cut and trim that down. Again, this stuff's not going to be visible, but I want to make sure that once it all comes down, it's it's going to stay straight. Excuse me. Okay, so this is going to be the walls that curve around the thing. So what I do is I just draw lines. They're about 1/2 inch apart. You can make them different sizes, but I make everything 1/2 inch, so I don't have a problem. And then I just score the top part of it. So I cut off the top part of the paper and then just get a little bit into the foam. And then I just do this for every line. And then eventually I go back and pop all of the foam. So all I'm left with is the solid paper on the other side. So just like everything, hot glue. Now, if you're going to notice, my curve is not 100% smooth, which is why I do 1/2 inch. So this way, it'll compensate. And you'll see here in just a second. So the flat paper edge goes against the grain. Now, when you do the other side, you're going to have to cut the other side so that way it matches, because there's no need to do two separate templates. So anyway, you'll notice it's not going to go 100% up against the thing. So I want to make sure that it's, it's there and it's straight. It doesn't curve in or anything because of the foam. So these are all the pieces that I made. I didn't show you the construction of those because I was doing it all freehand, and then went back and measured and put them into the template. Okay, so you don't need to do this step, but I did it anyway, which is just regular drywall mud, some patch. I went back just to fill in the gap. Inevitably, I didn't need to do this, but if you feel like it's maybe too bumpy or something like that, you can go back and fix it a little bit. So this is just very, very generic felt. I think it's just the standard felt. It's probably about 40 cents a piece or something like that. And remember, felt stretches, so I use a marker just to I push the felt into the very corner and then make that mark. But again, felt stretches, so you'll have to just kind of play it by ear a little bit. But once you cut it out, I put a nice thick layer of tacky glue on the thing, and I use a brush to make sure it's all relatively even. But you want to make it relatively thick because this felt will soak up quite a bit as soon as you lay it down. So start in the corner and work your way out. So see how it's already kind of sticking, doesn't want to slide. So if you ever need to see, it's a little less on top, so just hold the bottom of the felt and then just kind of wave your hand over the felt up towards the gap, and then that'll help stretch the felt out a little bit. And remember, you're going to put wood around this stuff, so it's not really going to matter too much. This stuff is like the premium felt. It was the only one that I liked the color for. This is about $1.50 a piece or something like that, but it's twice the thickness. It's actually really nice, but it's not entirely necessary. It's just whatever you want to do. So inevitably, even though these things overhang, I ended up having to go back and actually cut these things to fit. It just is what it is. So this wood I bought from Walmart, I forget, they call them mini sticks. I'll put the description of them in the description. But I measured one part and then I just cut a bunch of these things. Now these are my aviation snips that I use to cut this wood. It makes an easy job of the stuff, but it will leave a little bit of a serration on the edge. So just keep that in mind if that's important to you. But it's really easy to cut. Okay, so I put these on. Normally I use tacky glue, but in this case I wanted to move pretty fast, so I use hot glue. And this stuff dries or cools pretty quickly, so I recommend just doing 1 or 2 inches at a time. It's potentially a slow process, but you can move on to the next phase pretty quickly. But you pretty much have to do all of it, right? So as I say, I got a little bit faster by the time that I got towards this end of it. But still, I was only doing about 2 inches at a time because it was still drying or cooling down way too fast. Then I'd have to pull out all of the dry glue and go back and redo it. So these are those little normal model snips. I forget what they're called exactly, but this wood is really tough to cut. I was really shocked. It took a lot of pressure. I found that don't try to cut the whole thing at once, obviously. I guess that makes sense, but just do a little bit at a time, just with the very, very tip of the thing. I think mine are getting kind of dull too, but it will crack the wood, most likely, but it doesn't matter. If it does pop off, just re-glue it, because I had that happen quite a few times. But it's a lot easier to trim this stuff. Don't use a hobby knife because you'll end up hurting yourself. Hobby knives do not cut through this stuff at all. So definitely, this is the only thing I can find that actually works well, gets it smooth on the top, and for the most part, and safe. Okay, so this is just that nutmeg color that I'm sort of using for everything. This is the only color I pretty much used, except for the rings themselves. Again, this stuff is watered down, so it does a pretty good job on this stuff, making it look like sort of stained wood. Just don't go back over it too many times, otherwise it will you'll start to coat it too many times and it will actually look like paint at that point. If you're not entirely comfortable with that, water it down so that way you have a little more freedom. I don't put the wood on the back of the levels because I feel like it was just sort of a waste of wood, so I just ended up painting it. So this divider, it's very important to make sure that it's level. And it doesn't matter if it's not level to the base that you're working with, but it has to be level in reality because the other two pieces have to meet together. So this is why I used these 1, 2, 3 blocks to make sure that they're level to the ground, or at least the table. Now I'm cutting this down only because I didn't really have a size specifically for it at the time. The templates actually, they ended up being the same side as, or the same piece as the side, the same shape as the side. So that made it easier, but I didn't know that at the time. So I was just cutting it by hand and eyeballing it. But say I have a gap there, and then I'm just gonna use some wood and some hot glue to kind of fill in that gap. Nobody's gonna see it, especially when you paint it. It's gonna completely disappear. And some of it, as you line up the wood, it's just gonna fit in no matter what. So see, there it is. So all the corners ended up being relatively nice and solid. So boom, there it is. So now here's the second tower. I used green cardstock for it. Again, another $10, but it's worth it because it was only the one time. So I take a piece of foam here for these rings. These rings are key rings that I found at Walmart. They're like 10 for $3. Yes, they have a little bit of a ridge to them, but they're not solid rings, but it's the best I can do without having to make them myself. This is just I think a 1/4 inch dowel rod. I'll put it in the description what it is actually, but I think it's a 1/4 inch dowel rod. But I put a little indentation in the foam, so this way, but when I lay the ring down, it's gonna glue halfway in the middle of it. So I'm gonna use this super glue gel. Now, super glue does not stick to metal very well, especially brass. But in this case, I'm gonna put a big glob of it on there. And then I'm going to go back and sprinkle sawdust on it, or you can sprinkle, baking soda, whatever it is. But I had wood and some sandpaper around, so I used sawdust. And this will make the super glue dry much faster and make everything stick. And then I turn it around and I'll do the same side. I'll do the other side the same way to make sure they're nice and solid. Okay, so now that I have all of my pieces, the 3 different sizes, including all these little pieces that I made, this was sort of an afterthought. I wasn't going to do rings at first, but I realized that I wanted to have something that kind of helped stick the 2 pieces together, keep them from sliding apart, and then also have that, just to bring in the diorama display a little bit better when they're just sitting on a shelf and not being used. So that's where it's going to go. Forgive the fact that it's way up there in the top of the frame, but so here are the pieces, and I just very loosely carved. You could probably do a much better job than I did. I say all this was sort of on the fly. So I have these pieces. I cut out all the holes. I just punched the dowel rod through them basically and made the holes, cleaned them up a little bit, and then topped it off. So this way it's all level to what I made. And then making sure that you don't glue any of the holes. You glue the piece, and then I put the dowel rod in there to make sure that all the holes are still lining up before it dries. So that's what the whole final piece should look like when it's all glued together. And then I'm going to end up painting this some sort of sand color. I forget what it is, but it's basically sand color. Okay, so there is what the 2 pieces look like. Forgive my background, I don't have a whole lot of room on this side, so I still haven't been able to create a good looking display to sit this stuff at. So okay, so there it is. And so the bleachers become places to hold the dice. Yeah, they roll pretty good and they come out. This will be real time right here. So yeah, so there we go, it works. That's it.